Hey folks, Rich from Trapping Inc. TV here, and I bet you are just like me, and the day can't start without that first cup of coffee. For me, it's Stout Maple, Old Smoke Coffee's darkest roast. Strong, aromatic, and smooth. That gets me revved up and ready for whatever the day throws at me. Old Smokes roast their coffee over wood fires, the old-fashioned way. Wood roasting takes time, much longer than modern hot air roasting. Slow roasting over wood takes the bitter out of the bean and imparts a heavenly taste and aroma from the wood used. Old Smokes makes a perfect roast for each person. There are 5 roasts from light to extra dark, each roasted over a different wood for a unique flavor. Right now you can order from their online store and use our promo code RICH, that's R-I-C-H, and get a free travel bottle on any purchase of $45 of coffee excluding the Wounded Warriors blend. Just go to oldsmokescoffee.com, that's O-L-E smokescoffee.com, use the promo code RICH. In these trying times, everybody's trying their best to adapt. Old Smokes is changing the promo rewards every couple of weeks, but every time, from now on, use RICH for the code. RICH will be the only promo code going forward, and what the heck, it's a lot less spelling on that silly phone screen. And now, back to today's show.
Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Scuttlebutt podcast. I'm Rich Mellon, and tonight we have a special guest from Idaho. And this is Robert Roman, and Robert Roman is the president for the Foundation for the Management of Wildlife. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but you got to be a trapper, right?
I am a trapper, yes.
Probably a hunter too, knowing how much there is for elk and especially cats. I love the cats in Idaho. Sandy has a cat on the wall from Idaho.
Yeah, I saw that clip that you had of her hunting the cat. I've been hunting all my life. My father was a hunter, and that's why we live in Idaho. He didn't like dairy farming in Wisconsin and headed for the promised land.
That's perfect. So originally from Wisconsin and moved to Idaho.
Yes, when I was 4, I convinced my father, let's go.
Okay. Whereabouts in Idaho? Like
We're in Panhandle, they call it. It's up near Coeur d'Alene Lake and Ponderay Lake.
Oh, okay.
It's more mountainous and lots of lakes, and we get a fair amount of rain compared to southern Idaho, which is it has its mountains too, but a lot of sagebrush and flatter ground.
Right.
Big valleys and whatnot. And we're more mountainous and river valleys and timbered.
Okay. We had cat. We were in the Frank Church Wilderness of No Return. So we went to Chalice, Idaho, and then we flew up into the river.
Yeah, when we want to get out of the trees, we go to Chalice.
Yeah.
Look for pronghorn or something. So, yeah, we live up near, and not too far from Spokane, Washington. Maybe a lot of people are familiar with Spokane.
Okay. So, were you a trapper? Like right from, was your dad a trapper and that started you in trapping, or is that something you picked up later?
I was born with a trap in my hand. No, just joking. I started trapping probably around 11 years old or 12. My a game warden lived next door, and he gave us some old traps to catch ground squirrels and whatnot with. And that's probably where we first started trapping.
Okay. So from there you went into like what was there to trap other than ground squirrels? Like, I mean, what was your commercial for?
Oh, it was kind of like you are on our way to school and back. My brother and I would trap the local swamp for mink and muskrat and raccoon once in a while. We didn't have a lot of raccoon in those days, but there's a lot now. And then I think I was probably 11, maybe 10 when I caught a bobcat. So that was pretty exciting for a little boy.
Oh, no kidding. And the money they were worth back then, you know?
Yeah, $70 we got for it, and that was a lot back then.
That was a lot of money. You better believe it was. What's your favorite animal to trap?
Wolf.
Okay. and what's your favorite technique for them?
I use a lot of dirt hole sets, I guess, is what I've used historically here.
Okay. Can you bait wolves there?
We can bait wolves using roadkill or butcher scraps or whatever. We have to keep our traps back 30 feet and our snares, which that makes good sense anyway. If we want to use bait in an actual set, we have to make sure it's covered so birds can't see it.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Like in a dirt hole, I'll put some grass in the front of the dirt hole to let the air go in and out, but to camouflage the bait, and it maybe looks like a mouse nest or something.
So you wouldn't have a lot of bait at a site then?
No, not unless we're going to snare. And if we're going to snare, we try to imitate you Canadians, and and, and then we'll put our snares out in the out a ways away from the bait.
Yeah.
We kind of learned that from you nice people who sold us these nice wolves.
Come on, we were trappers and we were getting paid to catch something.
That was a win-win situation for you, that's for sure.
We kept asking, you sure you want them alive? You sure you want them alive? You want them alive, okay?
Well, it's one of our more questionable decisions we ever made.
We've had some stupid ones. We are trying to save, I think it's a lost cause, but we're trying to save the woodland caribou here in Alberta. And if there was ever an animal that was born with a will to die, it's a woodland caribou and a rainbow trout. And they have there are a couple zones that they're in, like they're down to herds of, one herd is 63 and another is 48 and stuff like that, right? We lost just about the entire herd. We lost 14 of 18 out of a herd that was in the mountains in an avalanche.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But what they're trying, one of the things that they decided they needed to do, because the wolves were there, was they thought they would kill all the moose. So they have they've launched big programs where we, like, no place else in Alberta other than these two wildlife management units that have caribou in it, can you hunt a cow moose. But there they were giving all kinds of cow moose tags, and just because the kind of terrain that caribou like to live in, it's very old forest, and it's very thick and dense, and it's rough and that kind of stuff. So it's not really easy hunting. And of course, the zone is bordered on one side, but you just have to walk across a road and you're in a different zone. Okay, and another side is the same way. And so all these people would get these cow moose tags, and then they would discover it was really hard hunting in WMU 353, but 354 and 356 had lots of cow moose, and it was easy hunting. And so they kept thinking that they had 700-800 moose left in this zone, and every year they were 900 people were being successful, and they were just too dumb to figure out what was going on. But their whole idea was they thought they could starve out the wolves. They thought that if they killed off all the moose, the wolves would leave rather than eating the caribou. Well, if that was true, then they wouldn't have been eating the caribou while the moose were there, right?
Right. They'd have been filled up on moose. Well, you know what that tells me? That either the woodland caribou price that we pay you to bring them down here to try and feed our wolves, which I think they've stopped that program, but we were buying them from Canada, woodland caribou, bringing them to northern Idaho and northern Montana, turn them loose, and they would go back home. We'd buy them again. Another win-win.
You can't blame us for a great economic model like that.
No, I'm looking for a deal like that myself, but so we. I think they've given up on the caribou here because the wolves have taken off so well that I don't think there's a chance for caribou to make it anymore, even if there was one.
Well, and the caribou don't take pressure really well. I mean, the only place the caribou are in good shape in Alberta is in the far north, where there's not a lot of, like up on my trap line, or north of my trap line, actually. They're called the Porcupine Mountain, or not the Porcupine Mountains, the Caribou Mountains is what they're called. And they're doing really well up there, but there's thousands of them, and there's very little development. And one of the things they said that the wolves use so effectively are roads and seismic lines, and that they can use it to grid a valley and to herd or otherwise control where that herd of caribou goes. and it's pretty interesting. So those are the only places that they're doing well. I'm sure that the caribou you're getting would probably be from BC, but they're also having problems in BC because we end up with having there's a lot of hunting that goes on, unregulated hunting that they just can't take it for whatever, with all the various pressures that's on them. I mean, they can't take the pressure anymore, and the populations are starting to fail. So there's a lot of places that we can't hunt. We can't hunt caribou in Alberta, period. And there's a lot of places in BC now where they're cutting back on it.
Yeah, BC is where we got them, the caribou. And I think Montana also got the few they had from British Columbia, and they were all excited. The one that they had in Montana was going to have a calf, but just prior to that, a cougar got it.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so I guess you can't count your calves before they're born. So
One question. You talked about snaring. Can you guys use lethal snares, or are you just leashes?
Lethal.
Lethal.
Idaho uses lethal. Montana does not.
Okay.
At all.
It's confusing to me that you wouldn't be allowed lethal. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just don't understand that. Everybody talks about, that you're torturing those animals by holding them in a foothold trap or in a snare and everything. So why not make it lethal, right? Make it over with.
Well, actually, when they opened the season for wolves, we hadn't much experience at it, so we actually invited Paul Treppis down from British Columbia, I believe he is, and since then I've gone up to in 2018. I'm wearing my shirt right here. Can you see it?
Yeah.
I went up to the Alberta Trappers Rendezvous and met actually yourself and a bunch of the trappers, and they were all quite friendly. And we've had.
We always go that time of year. It's we've had our yearly bath, and so we smell pretty good. We feel pretty good.
yeah. It was actually a lot of fun. My two daughters and my wife and I went up, and we had a blast. We had a good time, and Morley Smith, he came down and showed us a few things and talked to us, and I believe he's going to come back this fall. We had what they called a diverter. It was developed in Alaska, and we ended up being the only state in the union that had to use one, and it was a couple of prongs of wire that stuck out parallel the trail you were trying to snare.
Right.
And the idea was when a moose would come along, its nose would hit that wire and push the snare out of the way.
Okay.
But what we found is the deer would duck the wire and get into the snare.
Yeah, well, then you're letting his head right up with it, right?
Yeah. So the setup that I've been using has a breakaway, and it seems to work on the elk. I think, is it Seneca breakaway?
Yes.
Maybe.
Well, it would be. Is it like an S?
Correct. Yes.
An S shape. Yeah. What weight of breakaway do you use for elk?
I think it's 750 pounds. Whatever the largest one they have, they're 750 or 850 pounds. I think it's 750.
Yeah, I use either the 900 or 1,000 pound for moose.
Okay. I think I didn't realize they had them that big, but I believe we're using the 850 pound.
Okay.
And we don't have so much of a trouble with moose as elk. And I try to set where the elk won't come, but they always seem to come anyway.
Yeah.
And so I caught 3 last year, and all 3 of them pulled that S-link apart and were free. So
good.
It worked.
Good.
So,
yeah, I agree with those. They're not law here yet in Alberta, but I do agree with them. I agree that they should have that kind of a breakaway on them, right?
It's not law here either yet, but I think it's a good tool to use.
So when you're using snares, then do you set big bait piles then, or do they still got to be covered?
Well, I'm learning from Morley Smith, and so we will be using. We can use big bait piles in the open, just like you can.
Okay.
But I haven't really had a lot of success with that unless I find a natural kill that they've made. Then I've done well around it. Just kind of getting into that large bait sets. I know there's a man in northern Idaho that's done very well with wolf, and he uses the large bait a lot.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of my snaring is just blind sets and where I see they go once or twice, and then I put a snare there and I catch a few like that.
You talk about Morley Smith. That guy can talk to a wolf, can't he?
Yeah, he's quite a character and a super nice fellow. I'm really impressed with him.
Oh
In
yeah.
fact, all the people that I met up there, I think maybe I was asking, but I think I got about 4 or 5 invites to come on trap lines when I was at that rendezvous,
Oh,
which
cool.
was pretty impressive. I didn't take advantage of them yet. I'm hoping to have a rain check on it, but yeah, people were so outgoing and nice up there. I really enjoyed our time up there.
Well, it's different here because we own our trap lines and we're not worried about somebody poaching on our line or learning our line because it's ours. You know,
here it's free for all.
Yeah.
But most of the time, the people respect one another, and if they see that a trapper is up a road, they'll go to a different area. But it is open. It's public land. You can go wherever you want to and set your traps.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. When you're foot holding, what's your favorite trap?
Well, I like the coral. Now I've caught most wolves in Minnesota brand 750 MB 750, but I prefer the coral. It just seems to screw into the ground solid, and it's got a nice big area for the paw, the larger target. Seems to hold up well, and I think one of the real reasons I like it is because it'll just screw right into the ground. It just seems to be so solid. I've had some square traps of similar size, and they didn't. To me, they didn't set into the ground as solid as the coral.
Well, James will be happy to hear that. But I'll say one thing about those round jaws that the coral has. It comes up out of the snow better than I think than a square jaw does.
Yeah.
You know, do you set in snow?
Well, I'm still learning. I hate snow, but I try to sit underneath trees, you know, where there's a good limb cover along the edge of an old road or whatever, so that it'll keep some of that snow and ice off. I don't know that I've really caught anything in just pure snow set. I have friends that have, but I haven't mastered that yet.
Oh.
After a bit, it seems they get pretty wise, and if they see any sign that you got off your snowmobile, they avoid that spot, the area.
That's why you have a sleigh out behind, and you just you just step off your snowmobile into the sleigh and work off the back end and set the trap right in your track itself. You know,
we've done that a time or two, but these snowmobiles with the big flippers on the tracks set my traps off whenever I try that.
Oh, you're dealing with public there, aren't you? Yeah,
it's not just my trail. So I've done about pretty well as far as Idaho trappers. I've caught right at 50 wolves since they've opened the season.
Well, that's good.
Either caught or shot. And then there's a few folks around that are like in the 70s and whatnot, but we're learning.
That's good. Do you have you're using the coral trap, so it's laminated and offset. Is that law there, or can you use any trap?
You can use any trap.
Is there a maximum size?
A 9-inch jaw spread.
9-inch. Okay. I wonder where that came from. I've asked a lot of people where 9 inches came from. You know, how they came up with that dimension, but
yeah, I don't know. Is that up there too?
Yep.
Is that the rule there?
That's the maximum jaw spread for wolf trap, and which is the largest largest trap out there.
Yeah. Well, it seems to work well, but I don't know why they came up with it.
Yeah, I have
But
no idea. I have no
like I
idea
say,
what's.
I've caught the MB 750 is a good trap, and I've caught the majority of my wolves with that trap because I had only MB 750s for quite a while. So,
Do you peg them down? Do you stake them, or do you run off a drag?
well, I prefer to stake them. When I was a younger man, I let them run off a drag, but I've had to, one wolf, I had to go 400 yards to pick him up. And it was in timber, brush, and whatnot. I was quite surprised he made it that far, but I think the drag got stuck in the chain and was dragging backwards. And
Oh, yeah.
so
Yeah.
my sons and I kind of got abreast, and I was convinced he went down into this one canyon. So we made our way down there without seeing sign for a good 300 yards. And then it looked like a feller bunter had fallen out of the sky and everything was chewed up. And so we knew we were on the right track. And then my son said, "Here it is." And I said, "What is it, a bear or a wolf?" And he said, "Oh, it's a wolf." But the amount of vegetation that was chewed up, I thought it could have been a bear.
You'd
But
almost wish that you could have saddled him and rode him back out of there before you shot him, right?
exactly, exactly. It might have been kind of a stinky ride, though.
There. Nothing smells worse than a wolf, right?
I shot my first wolf when they had the first season open. I was kind of bored, so I went up to St. Joe River, which is nearby, and ended up getting one the first day I went, and it reeked. It had rolled in something very bad, and it reeked. And I brought it home, and I had it hanging out in a tree out in the front yard. And my wife comes out there, and she said, "Robert, if you ever get another wolf, just throw it over the bank. Don't even bring it home." So she does not like wolves.
No, no. How big do your wolves get there?
Right around 100 pounds, I think, for a male. The largest I've caught was 120 pounds, and I think he had a pretty good portion of moose in him.
Yeah.
But most of them are right around, for a male, I'm going to say 100, 110 is a real big one.
Yeah.
96, there's a lot of 96ers. 92 seems to be a good number. Females seem like more in the 80s, 85, 89, wherever. But
Yeah.
and then the pups are usually in the 70s somewhere. But I think I caught a 69-pound once, and then I caught a female that was like 63 or something. And she had pups before, so I don't know why she was such a runt. But
Yeah, you never know, do you? I got one this winter that was just shy of 100 pounds, but it probably had 20 pounds of meat in it.
We get quite a few 100-pounders, and that's a big wolf. People.
Yes, it is. That's a very big wolf.
I log for a living, which is glorified farming. But so I'm logging, and this guy comes up on the road I'm on, and he says, we start talking wolf, and he says, "Did you see the picture of the lady that caught the 1,000-pounder?" And I started laughing, and he says, "No, there's a picture of it down at the filling station. She's holding it up." And I said, "That'd take one big mama to hold up a 1,000-pound wolf." He kind of got a dumb look on his face when he started adding the numbers up. But
I think nobody thinks about that, like the actual physical ability it takes to lift. They talk about, it's a 200 or 300-pound wolf, and they're holding it up. It's like, are you kidding me? My one boy is a firefighter, and earlier in his career, he trained to do the firefighters challenge. And at one point, they have to grab, I believe it's a 160-pound dummy, just grab it by the arms and just drag it for, I forget, 30 feet or 20 feet or something like that. He says, that is unbelievably heavy, so you start weighing everything. And I've always been a numbers guy. And the biggest wolf I've ever seen on a certified scale, my buddy Luke got, it was 124 pounds. And here's Luke and Teddy Brown were out and got it. Both of them are probably like 5'2" kind of guys. You know what I mean? They're not very tall, and they've got it on a pole, and they got it over their shoulder, just like they're off in darkest Africa on safari, right? And they got this wolf hanging on there. Well, it looks bigger than them. It's like they can hardly keep it off the ground from dragging in the snow, right? And it weighed 124 pounds. But you got to remember, a wolf has got 8 inches of fur on it, right? You know, that
Right.
you knock all that fur off, and there's a lot less body there. You know.
I think there's something to be said about good photographers. And I just seen a notice on my phone that the battery's going to run out pretty soon. I might have to grab the charger, but I'm looking for a plug-in now. But anyway, yeah, so I've been trapping wolves since they opened the season. My son was talking to my wife and said, yeah, Dad's going wolf trapping, and he's going to buy a snowmobile and go wolf trapping. And she said, no, he's just trapping them on the logging jobs where he's working. And no, he's going to buy a snowmobile and he's going. And so I showed up at home with the snowmobile, and she starts raising a few eyebrows, you know, but I have to work, so I just do it. And, you know, a lot of times I was up at night doing it, you know, checking my traps. It was not ideal. I suppose the people in northern Canada are out in the dark a lot on their lines, but it's not ideal to read all the sign and see what's going on, and so you can adjust your sets or set snares, or sometimes you'll see tracks in the dark that tell you there's a kill around there, but you don't have enough light or night. Maybe you got to be back to work in the morning to do it justice.
Of all the conditions that make up trapping or make trapping difficult, the lack of light is the worst. Our shortest day here in on the 22nd of December, whatever, we have about 7 hours and 10 minutes worth of daylight. You know, that's from sunrise to sunset, and that's if it's not snowing. And December we get a lot of snow, so you operate a lot in the dark. You know, it makes it tough. Cold isn't as tough, and snow isn't as tough as that dark, because things just you're really out of your element. You know, like, I mean, things just don't make as much sense when you got to look at it through with the headlamp or flashlight or whatever, right?
You don't have a broader picture. I don't think. I think everything's too focused, and you can't see the whole picture of it. So I better start talking fast before my camera dies.
Do you need to find a charger?
Well, I'm looking around for one here, and then a plug-in will have to do. So let me take a quick look. You tell the guys a story for a second.
We'll have to cut this part out.
Yeah, no, I don't see the charger, Andy. We'll just do the best we can here. Why don't I talk about F4WM a little bit?
Well, let's get at that then. That was the thing that we were here on to talk about, is why we're talking about wolves and what your personal vendetta against wolves, I guess, or your personal interest in the wolf trapping and hunting.
Well, when the elk ate 14,500, when the wolves ate 14,500 elk out of a 16,000 elk herd, I thought, hey, we better slow these guys down a little bit. So
people have no idea how much they eat. How many wolves do you have?
They finally decided last summer's count, 1,541.
Oh, yeah?
So, and our management plan calls for 150 at the minimum and 500 at the maximum. So we're well over that.
We're supposed to, they say for a nice balance in Alberta, we should have 1,600. And they say that we're somewhere between 8,000 and 9,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's way overboard. That's how it is here. And they took off well. You know, they turned them loose in central Idaho, and they turned them loose in Yellowstone Park. And I think they should have opened the season the day they turned them loose. Maybe we could have kept up with them a little bit. But, the greenies, they wanted so many wolves. and they agreed to it. And then as we got that many wolves, they kept pushing it higher and higher, and court cases and whatnot. And they waited way too long. I don't think we needed to lose, 15,000 elk out of that herd before we opened the season on wolves, but
So
they did.
when did this all start?
That was in 1997, I think, is when they turned them loose.
Okay, and when did the Foundation for the Management of Wildlife start?
It started in 2011.
2011.
Yeah, and how it started is there about 8 or 9 men in Sandpoint, Idaho, were concerned of the depredation on or the elk numbers going down, and the moose numbers going down, and the wolf numbers going up, and so they were trying to decide how we could fight it. And one of the guys said, "Well, why don't we pay trappers to catch them?" And so it started from that, and in 2012 we became a 501 C3, which is a nonprofit organization, and so we have kind of mimic the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation or other organizations that have a banquet and $35 membership and gather funds. And then the way it works is if you catch a wolf, a legal wolf, you take it to the Department of Fish and Game, and you get a mortality report. That means that you show that to us, and we know it's legal. And then you also copies of receipts of anything that you spent to get wolves, whether it be snowmobile payments or snowmobile gas or tires or rifle or shells or traps or lure, whatever,
Expenses.
any expense that you had. And there's lots of them. If you trap wolves, there are lots of expenses.
Oh, God.
And so you present that to the secretary, and she sends you a check for anywhere from $500 to $1,000. And so far, we've spent $554,000 on 844 wolves that we've reimbursed for here in Idaho.
844. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a remarkable, though. I mean, that might sound like a lot of money to a lot of people, but years and years and years ago, when they were talking about heli gunning wolves in Alberta, a partner and I, we put in a bid for it. And at that time, we were figuring that it would cost us about $4,000 a wolf to heli gun them. Yeah. And I know that the last numbers I saw, because they have in those caribou zones I was talking about, they have a poisoning program going on where they poison wolves, and of course they kill moose to put the poison bait in. But those, even when they're poisoning, they're costing about $7,000 a wolf. As hard as that is to believe, that's what it's costing, is about $7,000 a wolf. So I don't know what it would normally cost there, but for you to get
it's $9,000 for the Idaho Wolf Control Board to take out wolves that are catching cattle and sheep. Costs them $9,000 a wolf. So
there you go.
We're getting it done for $656 a wolf by volunteer and sportsmen, trappers and hunters.
Well, so that's the way it is, though. I mean, the day that you don't have trappers out there on the land removing wolves and coyotes for free, God help us all.
Correct.
It's one of the things here in Alberta. We ship 40,000 coyotes a year off to the fur market. Well, the day that we don't do it the trappers don't do it for free, now it's going to cost how many millions of dollars for the government to pay somebody to do it. Well, you take 900 wolves times 9,000. That's $8.1 million that those wolves would have cost the government, right?
Correct. Yeah. It's our program's working. There's a lot of benefits that we're getting besides just reimbursing trappers for wolves, and that's we're bringing. We work with the other organizations in Idaho, whether it be the Idaho Trappers Association or the North Idaho Fur Takers or the Hound Hunters, the Cattlemen, we've been working with a lot of these other organizations, and we come to a table and discuss problems and how we can resolve them before we take it to um, the Fish and Game or the commissioners to get some season changes or equipment changes or whatever. So we brought a lot of unity um, with these other organizations, and it's really helped um, our cause here in Idaho to keep trapping in general um, vibrant, and also to lower the wolf numbers and things like that.
I'm sensing that you're getting a lot of cooperation from the government. Is that so?
We love each other and we hate each other. We work well with them, and sometimes they don't like us, and sometimes we don't like them, but we do work well together. And we've gotten some grants from them in the neighborhood of $10,000 an area. And there's like 7 units in Idaho, larger units, districts or whatever, and each of them offers a certain amount of money, that $10,000, and then there's a $3,000 statewide one. And several years we've actually been awarded that from the state of Idaho, the Department of Fish and Game. And what they require is that we use it in areas that they specify, where the elk numbers are especially hit hard. Right. And then we have to match it with funds of our own. And in those areas, we pay up to $1,000 per wolf reimbursement to the trapper. Usually it's a little maybe more rugged country or outback or something.
Well, that's good, though. I mean, it's good to become useful to the government, because after a while, you're just another line in the budget, right? And then they can't get rid of you.
We hope so. we're hoping right now. We've been working with the government and commissioners and trappers and whatnot, and getting our seasons lengthened for trapping and hunting, and the number of units in Idaho opened up where we can hunt and trap wolves, and so we're making headways. And a little more organized, I think, than we were in the beginning.
Okay, so you're there as a trapper or as a hunter of wolves. Is there a quota? Is there how many you can hunt or trap in a season? Or
yes, if you have a hunting and a trapping license, you can buy 15 hunting tags and 15 trapping tags, and so you would max out and you can trap a wolf, put a hunting tag on it, or vice versa, shoot a wolf and put a trapping tag on it, as long as both seasons are open. And that would give you a maximum of 30 wolves in a year.
Wow. So, and what does the tag cost?
I think it's $13 now. It was $11.50, but it might be $13.50 now. I'm not sure.
Well, they're serious. They're serious about utilizing you guys then.
Yeah. So we're excited about it, and we've been the tag limit was 10, 5 each, hunting and trapping, and we got them to move it up to 20, and now we've got them to move it up to 30. This will be our first year with 30. So we did have not too many people get to 20. We had one last year, I think, that got 20 wolves, or maybe 2. Or a couple real close there. But so it's a challenge, though, for people. We'll see who gets to 30 this year.
That is a challenge. It's funny, though, when you become useful to the government, it's kind of one of those confusing feelings, isn't it? You're useful, but it's to the government.
Yeah, that's quite the subject. We could get into politics, but I don't think we want to go there tonight.
So the flip side, you must have enemies.
No, everybody loves us.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we haven't. I'm sure that's coming someday. There's a few folks that have asked for our paperwork, which we have to provide to them, as we're a nonprofit organization. But we haven't been really attacked in the courts or anything yet.
Really?
Right. And we're happy about that. There's people who don't like us, of course, mostly down in Sun Valley. That's where the movie stars live.
Yeah, yeah.
So, uh,
Well, it's funny because I mean the trappers are getting attacked in Montana and in Oregon, right? Is it Oregon
correct.
or
Yeah.
Washington? Washington,
Uh,
they cut back, but I think they can only use.
no foothold trapping in Washington.
That's right.
Only
I think
live trapping.
yeah, just
No
live trapping.
And Oregon's right in line working towards that. Montana, you would think Montana would be quite conservative, but there's a lot of in Missoula and around the universities and stuff. It seems like there's a lot of more liberal ideas.
Do you have an education program?
We do. In fact,
I mean,
uh,
not just going down to the bar and saying, "Hey guys, let's go shoot some wolves," because all the hunters they were right with you. But I mean, to try and spread your word. You know, chew those people at the
we're
university.
working, we're growing. We're actually 3,500 members right now. We're growing pretty fast, and we have some. We're making some brochures, and we have. I had a little rendezvous and have demonstrations, and we have invited a few trappers from your neck of the woods down, or British Columbia and Alberta, and we'll continue to do that. So we're trying to reach out, and we had a brochure that was kind of geared toward hunters and trappers, and so now we're making one that's another one that's geared toward the cattlemen, how we can help them with their cattle wolf problems, and then we have another one that we're making that's just for John Q. Public, try and combat some of the baloney that the far left is puts out about how wolves and stuff. We want to try to bring them back to some sound science and reality check on wolves.
Yeah, but facts and science never combat emotion, right?
No, I know, and so we're kind of trying to, it's kind of a word game in a way. They pick a phrase or a slogan, and we're kind of constrained because we want to tell the truth. We don't want to lie about it, and so we can't use the same tools that the other side uses.
Well, it's even like the old argument about animals being skinned alive, right? And
No,
just the whole thought of it, like how would you begin to skin an animal alive when the whole value in that animal is that fur, and you don't want to be bit or clawed or whatever. I mean, it's just ridiculous, but people believe it. I mean, it is so ridiculous. And why would you do it? Why would you skin him alive? It's not like he's going to grow another fur. You know what I mean?
I've never heard that one myself, but
oh, PETA. That's one of PETA's biggest things. They actually paid somebody in China, in one of the, maybe it was a raccoon or fox farm in China, to actually do it. And they've been charged over it, of course, and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's ridiculous. The other thing that we see a little bit of is them talking about the mother coyote or the mother wolf is stuck in the trap, and her babies are in the den starving to death. Well, nobody, the general public, has to have it explained to them that when we trap them, it isn't that time of the year. Those animals are all adults at that point. There are no babies around, But I know what you mean. We like to not argue on that based on emotion. We want to be factual on that, and facts just don't win against emotion, it seems.
Yeah, so we're working our way through that now, trying to think of a good way to get the message across to soccer moms and joggers and hikers and photographers. We haven't really found that little way to do it yet. You got any ideas? Let us know.
It's always good when one of their pets gets eaten.
So we do have educational, programs for like safety, how to get your dog out of the trap if it gets caught. Or most of the time when we're wolf trapping, they like to use that we're going to break their little dog's leg and stuff. But when we're wolf trapping, we're usually not around where the berry pickers are all done by that time, and it's pretty remote where we trap wolves. They're around the edges of our towns, but not really that close in.
And here we abide by AHITAS, so all of our traps are padded jaws, or they're laminated and offset, so nothing gets broken. Your hand doesn't
Yeah.
get broken if you get caught in it. Like, I mean, that argument is completely invalid. But
Correct.
we had it 2 years ago. Edmonton had a problem with beavers. And of course, Big River Valley runs through there, and beavers are industrious and great at multiplying. Anyway, they had trappers hired to take care of all this. Right, Horlack Park was being logged by the beavers, and people found out that these beavers, of course, it was lethal, right? Because you just can't take a beaver from one pond and go throw it in another pond. Right away, there's a battle. One of them ends up dying or getting pushed off, and then Mother Nature has all kinds of wonderful plans on for her denizens. I mean, how the rest of their life is going to go. All you did was just delay it dying and made it that much more miserable. But it was a big protest and everything, and it got down to the point where they'd actually stopped the trapping. And then one of the people's dogs went out swimming in Horlack Park and swam too close to a beaver. The beaver grabbed a hold of it and drowned it. Well, then we were back to whacking and sacking beaver.
Yeah. I see the beaver is starting to be quite a thing in Oregon. They're trying to stop trapping of them. They say that they're making habitat for the Chinook salmon and whatnot. And so,
and that's the biggest farce ever, because if the dam is there, the Chinook salmon can't get up there.
correct.
So,
but they're using that for leverage with the John Q. public who don't know any better. So that's why we need to educate the public on what the truth is.
And it's the same thing as with any power dam that you have on a river or whatever. A beaver dam is a settling pond. So what happens if there are any eggs or spawned out in there that they get covered in silt and everything dies? We had that problem in our grayling rivers and that here in Alberta, right? Beavers, they get to be too many beavers. They get in there, they dam the place up, and then pretty soon the fish can't get up there to spawn, or they do spawn and the eggs die out because of the silt settling over. So once again, while it sounds like they've got that great emotional argument there, the science isn't there.
Correct. Yeah. But a lot of people don't stop long enough to consider. It's just like the 1,000-pound wolf that the lady's holding up.
Yeah.
People aren't stopping and adding the numbers up. And it's the same with the beavers or the wolves or anything. They're not stopping and putting right reasoning to it.
No. And the whole problem with animals is that you can't put them on the shelf. We can't take all these moose and set them on the shelf and wait for next year or whatever. I mean, nature's got her own plans for it, and there are so many other variables that's involved, as you've discovered, when wolves can eat their way through a lot of elk in a big hurry.
We discovered that, yes.
So how are your elk herds doing?
Hey, Rich here. Sandy and I are pleased to announce the launch of our exclusive community, Trapping Inc. Nation. We've created the community to connect more closely with our fans, friends, and supporters without the interference and censorship of social media companies. By making this community subscriber exclusive, we can share thoughts and ideas freely without the censored photos, shadow banning, and deplatforming of Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Trolls will be a thing of the past, as not one will spend a nickel to protest on a paid site. Here you're going to get to see the new Trapping Inc. videos months ahead of YouTube and Amazon Prime availability. New podcasts will premiere here for a week as well, and we are going to be sharing articles on trapping and guns and shooting, as well as our new TV series, Married to the Hunt. The forum is here for everyone to post on and interact. You can message us directly. Post and interact with all the other subscribers. We ask that you be respectful and helpful. This whole venture is about taking the Trapping Inc. TV community to the next level, of building a community of shared interest and interacting with you, our fans. Who knows where we can go from here? To sign up, just go to locals.com and sign up for a free account, then search for Trapping Inc. and subscribe. $3 per month is the minimum fee we can charge, and that is where we have set it. That's simple. Just go to locals.com, open a free account, and then subscribe to Trapping Inc. Help us spread the truth about our way of life and the responsible and ethical management of the wild resources. And now back to today's show.
With Idaho, you have, in the southern part, it's completely different than the north. And in the southern part, the wolves are being displaced, or the wolves are displacing the elk and pushing them out onto the farmland. And so the farmers are losing their crops, and it's costing the state of Idaho a lot of money. And the officers, and they've got to go down there and actually they're spotlighting elk at night to try and relieve pressure on the farmers' fields. This year, because of the drought down there, they've started that already. Up in the northern part, we don't have that problem so much. We have a little bit with the wolves pushing the elk around, but we don't have near the farming up here. And so our problem is the backcountry. The elk herds have been devastated by the wolves.
Okay. So are the wolves being pushed out down into the farmland down south by the wolves, or is there not enough wolves to control them? What is
in the farmland? The wolves are pushing the elk out of the mountains into areas where elk never used to live, but the wolves aren't following the elk.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So for the elk, it's a choice of live in the mountains where they historically lived and get chased by wolves every day, or move down to the farmers' fields where there's lots of food and relatively safe because humans are nearby.
Yeah, it's amazing that interaction, how that works between ungulates and humans, how they become used to that. We had a situation here in one of our wildlife management units, and it boundaried on a river. Okay, the dividing between the one unit and the next was this river, and on the north side of the river, just a mile or so from the river, it started into agricultural farmland. Well, the elk would come in every night, and they would be up and down through that through all that farmland, and they're doing a huge amount of damage. And they were getting into bale yards, and we were paying big dollars to take and protect these bale yards, put up fencing and all that kind of stuff. So they ended up putting out a bunch of tags for these elk. Well, what ended up happening, and we discovered later, was that we were not trying to drain the elk of just that one management unit. Those elk were actually probably coming 8 miles every night. They were 5-6 miles across the river to the south in the different unit, in the bush, in the big bush and then they would make that migration into the food every night. So we ended up not just taking down the elk population in the agricultural unit, but in the forest unit as well.
I think that's similar to what's happening here. So, but it's kind of complex for the Foundation for Wildlife Management to try and help the ranchers and farmers and elk hunters, because we were started by a group of avid elk hunters who were passionate about elk and hunting, and so go try to sell a farmer, that's having elk damage. We don't have enough elk, so we have to. It's different problem for different areas in Idaho, but it's still rooted in the reintroduction of the gray wolf.
Isn't that amazing? That is absolutely amazing. Just 1 second. I have somebody at the door. I'll be right back.
That's all right.
My apologies. My doorbells went off. My two bird dogs. We have a painter here right now. We're repainting. This virus is enough to kill anybody, isn't it? had to take down everything off all the walls and patch and paint and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not a happy guy.
No, I can relate to you. I'm doing some projects myself right now.
Yeah. So. Hey, has Idaho made out during this? During the
COVID?
Yes.
We've been actually not so bad. I don't think we've actually been fairly lightly hit. I think Boise, the city had more perhaps, but and a little bit in Kootenai County up here where I live. But for the most part, we haven't been affected that much.
Okay. Let's get back to our podcast. We were just talking about partnering. I guess basically what you're talking about is partnering with the farmers, the ranchers, and that to make them understand how the balance has been upset. And
correct.
At one time, was there a lot of wolf, like naturally in Idaho?
In the 1920s or 30s, we got rid of all of them.
Okay.
For the most part. I mean, they might there may have been some remnants around, which is kind of surprising that they just didn't come back naturally from Canada. We're common border up on the north there, and there's wolves just inside of Canada. So I don't know why they didn't repopulate naturally out of Canada. They're sure spreading now from Idaho. They've gone to Washington and Oregon, all the way to California. And I just wonder why they didn't
That is
come across the
curious.
border.
That is curious. So now these wolves are spreading out from Idaho into Washington, Oregon, and all the way to California.
Correct. Yes, and they're headed toward Utah, and and then they've got other reintroduction projects in the works in New Mexico and Colorado, and they're trying to get an initiative passed in Colorado this fall, be on the ballot to bring wolves, to require wolves in Colorado reintroduction. They're coming in natural right now, so it saved them a lot of money if they voted that initiative down.
How many wolves did you start with?
Ah, boy, that's a tricky question. I think it was just in the teens, like, I don't remember. It wouldn't have been over 30 wolves that they turned loose in central Idaho. But they really took off now, and they're just like 1,500 in Idaho. I think there's like maybe between 200 and 400 in Washington. Oregon, I don't think had so many yet. There were only a few, like one pack or two in Northern California now. It's just amazing how fast they're spreading.
Okay, well, talk about your organization. Is it just for folks in Idaho?
At this time, it is. We were trying to go to Montana, but Montana has certain kind of law on the books that needs to be changed before we can offer reimbursements for big game, which is what wolf is classified as.
Okay.
So for right now, it's the entire state of Idaho. We have members, I think, like 13 states or so. Our members are in different states that come out here hunting or whatever. So.
Oh, really? Oh, so
Yeah.
so people can come there and hunt and.
Yeah, anybody. If you're out here hunting bear, it's legal to shoot a wolf over a bear bait. And if a lot of people just come out hunting wolves, and they've got a misconception that, they call up and they ask, I'm going to be coming out. I'm going to want to shoot about 10 wolves, and stuff like that. They don't understand that it's not so easy. In fact, the hunters, per number of tags sold, the amount of success is less than 1% for hunters.
Yeah.
And for trappers, it's just a minute here. I got that. For trappers, it's 30. I think it's 30%. Oopsie. Trappers, 30%. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's interesting. We have similar stuff to that. Like we have over-the-counter bighorn tags in Alberta. Yeah. You can buy a tag over the counter and you can go hunting if your resident success rate is between 2% and 4%. Then there's the outfitters that bring in non-residents, and I think they have 80 some tags. But their success rate varies year to year, but it's 20 to 30%. So it's 10 times.
I've watched a few videos of just resident British. No, they were Albertans, I think. Yeah, and they were sheep hunting, and it looked like quite an adventure. They packed way in, and they did get sheep.
Yeah.
I think some years they don't, and some years they do. But is that an unlimited tag? That sheep tag?
In what way? If I shoot one this year, I can't hunt next year.
But is there a limit on the number of people that can buy that tag?
No.
Just open, huh?
Well, it's mostly because success rate is so very low.
Yeah.
And
we have a unit here in the States, in Montana. There's a unit in an area that they unlimited tags. You pay the full price, so a non-resident is going to be close to $2,000 to buy a tag, and then there again, the success rate is very low.
Yeah.
But most of our units are draw you put into an application, and like maybe 100 people or 200 put in, and then if you're lucky, you get your name pulled.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now I know that us in BC are the only two places left in North America where you can buy an over-the-counter bighorn sheep tag. We can't even do that with moose. Like moose is all on draw. Elk you can buy over the counter. Deer you can buy over the counter. That kind of stuff. But certain animals they have them unlimited draw just to I don't know, protect the numbers, they say. But they took and put our moose on draw, and then they built the population up higher than it had ever been. And then we got do your moose get ticks down there in the wintertime?
Oh yeah.
We
And
get
then I don't know if it's well, I know it is. Since the wolves came in, we've had a lot more tapeworm cyst in the meat. Do you know what they are?
yes.
Little, yeah.
Yep.
A lot of. I had a cow moose tag a few years ago. They've closed that since. They should have closed it years before, but it had big sacks of fluid in the lungs.
Oh yeah.
And I guess that's related to tapeworm cyst. And then another moose that my daughter got a few years ago, about every slice we made when we're butchering up the animal, you would cut one of those tapeworm cysts. Which
those little ones, yeah. They're what, like size of a coffee bean kind of thing?
Correct.
Yeah.
And they're waiting to get devoured by a wolf so they can turn back into a tapeworm.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy, isn't it? How those interactions work.
But we didn't have that problem to that extent before the wolf came back.
Yeah, they brought it back with them.
Brought it back with them, yeah.
So people can join your organization. They can come wolf hunting in Idaho, and if they're successful, they can get back their expenses up to a maximum amount per unit, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Tell everybody what it costs and where they can find you.
Okay. The cost for membership is $35 a year. You can be a life member for $1,500. And where you can find us is on www.f and the number 4 WM. Think of my spelling there for a minute. www.f4wm.com. Okay. And there'll be a lot of information on there for you. And right now, with our getting open or getting some seasons open longer, and some hardware requirement changes and whatnot, our wolf harvest is going up, and so that's good. But we are having to struggle more for financial to make sure we cover all these trappers that apply for reimbursement. So
where
right
does
now,
your money come from?
We have banquets and auctions, and our membership's very important. $35 adds up. So at a typical banquet, banquets are our largest. We've had this year we've had 2, and then the COVID shut us down. We had 2 more planned, so that's going to kind of cut us short. And then we get some money from grants, and then donations and things.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it's an important thing, and I mean, it's the type of organization that I really approve of, and really makes me happy to see, because it is, the sportsmen themselves being the conservationists and putting their money where their mouth is, right?
Correct. I just wanted to tell you how much we've spent this last season, for a total of 253 wolves. We spent $196,000. So it's a goodly amount of money, and we expect to end up around 400 wolves a year, and so at least double that amount of money. So we're needing funds and we're trying to think of ways to gather them. So
It's a terrible year for that for everybody. I mean, my son is the president for the wild sheep chapter in Alberta, and literally their banquet was on the weekend before everything got shut down. So they just got it in. Now the over in BC they didn't, and so everybody's scrambling trying to make up money. What are your seasons?
our season for trapping in some of the more remote units opens on September 10th and closes on March 31st. And for more closer in units, trapping opens on October 1st, maybe 10th, October 10th, and runs till March 31st. Snaring opens on November 15th and ends on March 31st.
Okay, but they can find all that information at your website?
Some of that information they would probably find on the Idaho Fish and Game big game regs to make sure they get it right and not messed up by me.
Well, that's good. This has been an interesting talk, and I don't know when things are going to open back up again, but Sandy and I'd like to get down to one of your guys' conventions. And
that'd be great. We'd like to have you. And we have one in Sandpoint. We have one in Coeur d'Alene. We have one in Lewiston. We're hoping to. The COVID messed it up. And then we were planning one in Boise. So we're, when will the border open up? Do you have any ideas? I'd like to come up to the Alberta rendezvous again, but I think we might be sealed off at that time.
They canceled it. It was supposed to happen here later this month.
And in July, wasn't it? July 7th.
Actually, this I think, yeah, you're right. But the border's closed till the end of July now. They just extended it again this morning.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I guess I'll have to go to our wedding that. There's a wedding.
That's cruel and unusual punishment.
Exactly. So I guess that answers that question.
Okay. Give us your contact details one more time, and we'll get out of here.
Okay. It's Foundation for Wildlife Management, www.f4wm.com. There's plenty of information there.
It has been a pleasure, sir, and thank you for taking time. We've had a couple of issues, the dog doorbell and your phone going dead, but we got it done. I'll get this up here in the next week. You'll see it.
Been a pleasure, Richard. Thanks.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.